Thanks everybody for joining. This is part of our best practices series. Today I'm excited to have Dylan Gamboa from iRely here. I'll cover a couple of quick introductions and then we'll get right into the interview. So as I said before, this is part of our best practices series. So we've done a number of these in the past. We've covered multi-compartment routing with Ortec. We've done bulk analytics with a number of customers, and you can go back and look at all of these. Today, we're talking with Dylan from iRely on next-gen ERPs. BizSpeed has interviewed or has integrated with iRely, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk to Dylan and find out about more on iRely's vision and how it's positioned. So today's background really is I'm the host. I'm just going to talk to Dylan. It's an interview. If you have questions, then please go ahead and put them in the chat, and I'll make sure that we get those answered. But before we get started, Dylan, you want to tell us a little about your background, and then you can tell us the company overview and your role.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate this. Appreciate BizSpeed and appreciate you, Chris, for allowing us to do this. My background is kind of unique. I'd always spent time inside of tech in some way, shape, or form. My mother owned a tech consulting company out of Reno, Nevada, and everything like that, and always kind of helped her with that. When I graduated high school, I was a traveling door-to-door salesman, so I really started the sales chops and everything like that, selling Kirby vacuums door to door until I joined the Army in 2005. So I spent 4 years in the Army, and the job I had in the Army was hauling fuel. So went to Fort Jackson, Fort Lee, then went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri to learn how to drive a truck and hauled fuel for 4 years in the Army. And when I got out, I went to school and got my bachelor's in economics and my master's, and got a phone call from a guy in 2012 that said, "Hey, Dylan, you know tech, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "You haul fuel in the Army, right?" And I was like, "Sure." He's all like, "Awesome. I got an opportunity for you. Would love for you to help start consulting on the tech side of our oil and gas distributors all across the country." So met him up in Canada, up there in between Quebec and Montreal with McEwen Petroleum, and really got a deep dive learn into this industry. And over the last 13, 14 years, been just working with companies like those that are on the phone here today with their software systems, learning about kind of, how they utilize their tools, how they utilize their process and have the best process out there, and then making sure that they're maximizing everything with the people that they have with kind of those three pillars. Because if one of those pillars is off, it just, the whole stool falls apart from there. So I've been doing that with a couple hundred customers all across the country, some up in Canada, some over in Europe, and Asia and everything like that. So that's kind of my background from there. I got connected with iRely here. Probably I was first in 2020, so I learned about them because I was running a consulting company after Factor had sold. So I was with Factor from 2012 up until they sold PDI, and then kind of did independent consulting with all of the companies that I had known and grown with over 10 years. And I got a list that I was working through, and one of the companies on there said had a little field next to it that said went with iRely, and I was all like, iRely, what? I hadn't heard that name and everything like that, and dug in a little bit and found out it was the old Summit Software. So where iRely came around, everything like that was a company that's a fourth generational company, family owned. We still are family owned. There's no private equity or anything like that inside of our business. Really wanted to get into tech in the late 90s and early 2000s, and they started building and acquiring systems. And by 2010, the systems that they had acquired over that time, including Summit Software, including the Mikos Autofuel solution for the card fueling, really led to having these disproportionate systems through the acquisitions that none of them really talked to each other. So in 2012, our current president, George, only decided that the only way to do this is to make it a one singular system, modern day platform, and decided to go with a full web rewrite starting in 2012 and did that over 5 years to 2017. 2017 to 2020, they took it out to their current customer base. So that was the petroleum companies that were on the solution, the car fueling companies that were on the solution, along with some the retail companies on the solution, and then the ag and the commodity trading risk management customers like Hershey Chocolate and Starbucks that leverage the iRely system from there. But in 2020, they went to take it to market. Kind of a bad year to take something to market. Little things were going on in the world from there. But I got in contact with them there in late 2020, and then into 2021. That's when they brought me on to really run the full petroleum business. So having the sales team and the marketing team, the professional services team, and the product team, as I tell all of our customers and all of our prospects and everything like that we're talking to. I'm your ultimate escalation point, no matter where you are in the cycle, whether you're buying, you're implementing, or you're post go live. I'm the guy you need to come and talk to when you need to get something escalated from there. But what's really nice about the iRely platform as a whole, and why I decided to come over here after spending time with Factor and working with some of the other legacy systems out there and non-industry systems like the NetSuites and the SAPs and stuff like that,
Yeah.
was the vision that iRely had when they did go through the rewrite, is they wanted to provide a point solution for the industry, but also have the flexibility of being a customizable solution out there, because that's always it always seemed to be like that hybrid. The legacy system said you had to do it this way, you had to change your business process to do it this way. Whereas, with the modern day tech stack that we have and everything like that, you can take it out of the box from there, but you can also modify it just like you can a SAP or an Oracle or a NetSuite or something of that nature from there. So we have that nice blended mix between the two systems, and that leads to just awesome customer collaboration of adding new things to the system and really kind of maximizing what's best for this industry from there.
Yeah, and you guys are, I mean, so that's a good background. We obviously, for people that don't know BizSpeed, we're a petroleum logistics software platform. We do routing, dispatch, and driver apps, and we integrate. We're not a back office system, and that's why we work with iRely and other back office systems. But I think part of your background's interesting too, because you also know when you say non-industry solutions. I mean, you would work with NetSuite implementations, for instance, which is a great
Yeah.
platform, but is still building out on a custom basis. I think more of the fuel specific functionality. So you understand when somebody's looking at ERPs, kind of what they may not realize when they look at some different solutions out there, plus the legacy solutions.
Yeah, 100%. That's the thing. Like I said, I've touched, worked, sold, implemented, almost every solution in this industry from there. So, current ones that have been, sold and acquired over time, and then ones that, like you said, are not sitting inside of this industry, like the NetSuites and the Epicors, and those that are just using like a straight Sage intact from there, and the SAPs or the JD Edwards. I've run into JD Edwards a couple of times from there. And a lot of those, when you don't have that fuel specific and you're not really, in that business or industry, yeah, it looks great, it's flashy, the analytics are awesome and everything like that. But your blocking and tackling of cents per gallon, net gross, retainage, all these things that we just expect our systems to do. Those things you have to build out, you have to customize, and it's never a build out once. You always build it out once, and then you got to modify it, you got to change it, you got to maintain it, and then that means now are you going to a third party company to do that, or are you hiring developers in house? And a lot of that stuff spirals. I'm sure people on here have dealt with that with when they build out these customized systems that they acquire somebody that has a customized system from there, that the spider webs and untangling all is just it can become a mess. So that's why, we really wanted to, like, keep harping back on that hybrid, right? Take us out of the box over here at iRely, but also have that flexibility to customize if you have something specific that makes your business tick.
Yeah. Um, so today, like we'll follow the same format that we have, and really our goal today is to share best practices and help people understand what's out there. So we usually talk about strategy, state of the market, strategy, process, people, and technology. So from a strategy standpoint, there's a few questions that we'll cover. But let's start with the state of the market. So like when you look at the state of the ERP market, particularly for bulk logistics, kind of how would you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, just the market in general is it's consolidating, right? On both sides, right? There used to be 15,000 oil companies, and now there's 3,500. Just 10 years later, there used to be 20 different options that you could have for your ERP, and now there's really just three and a couple of other stragglers out there from there. So the consolidation has always been that big key there. The thing is that a lot of on the software side of things, what we're seeing is a lot of those legacy softwares have to start thinking about moving to a modern day platform. You can't, as much as those systems have worked and they've been great for 20, 30, 40 years out there, you can't update them. It's harder to get coders that know the background of those,
Yeah.
and you've got to move it over to where technology is. And luckily for us, we've already gone through that process. We've gone through those growing pains, and we're on that modern day tech stack and you're fully web based from there, that you don't have to worry about going through another implementation of software as those other companies are shifting and everything like that. You also see some of these companies are trying to rebuild it while you're in the sky, right? The
Yeah.
proverbial rebuilding the airplane in the sky. So you get this weird hybrid of legacy, executables that are sitting here, but then, oh, I want my customer service is over here in web, and then I've got to go over here for this, and I got to go over here for this, and that's just it's led to a lot of frustration, I would say, for folks out there that are dealing with those. So that's how I see, kind of the key word of the market is that consolidation, right? And so as that consolidates and everything like that, it is less and less options, for people out there. But that also helps on the flip side of saying, okay, now I can actually, when I do need to look at ERP, when I do need to make that change and everything like that, I can really hone in, focus, and I can dive deep into each one of the available platforms out there and really figure out what's best for the business, as opposed to sitting there and doing 20 different demos across 15 different solutions and thinking, oh, I like that one? I thought I saw this over here, and then you start getting them all mixed up. There's been a couple of times we've gone against, like, the Microsoft is just as a generic, and because our system we have, when we rewrote it, the number one thing that people asked for was, the tool that they use is Excel. So we built a lot of screens inside of our solution, like Excel, with Excel functionality, because that's the number one thing that people use, right? And we'll
Yeah.
get into, people are making the decision, and they'll come back and those processes say, like, I just, really like the Microsoft product and how they had the grid system inside the solution. I'm like, that's me. That's not Dynamics.
Yeah.
That's me, from there. So it's definitely nice to be able to narrow the solutions down and really be able to drive deep, as opposed to dealing with so many different ones out there.
We've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. It's funny that you said that. I've seen that where, on the transport routing, it's like we've had people that have looked at 20 or 25 systems and they can't differentiate, when they look at that many systems. I think on the tank wagon side and the lubricant side, there's much fewer. But yeah, and what we've seen, it's like everybody, we're web based, but there's a lot of legacies. You guys have been web based for quite a while, but a lot of people are still doing that. And I think it was interesting at the iRely conference that you guys are still in the process of updating your web platform, talking to your
100%.
CEO. It's interesting, yeah, to take
Yeah,
advantage
you
of some of the newer web technologies. Yeah.
yeah, you never want to be bleeding edge. We always want to be leading edge, right? So as things in the market shift, change and everything like that. So a lot of platforms, and I don't want to get techie here and everything like that. So your Netflixes and your Hulus and all that stuff on those singular platforms were built on this software called Sencha, and that's where we had built ours. Well, over the last probably 4 or 5 years, a lot of the software products that you see out there, your Salesforces and your HubSpots and all that have moved over to what they call React, right? So we're going through that process. But what's nice about already being on that modern day tech stack versus coming off a legacy is it's an easy shift in our background without a disruption to our customers, right? So they're always going to be on that leading edge without actually having to feel any of the pain that a true rewrite of a software would have to go through from there. But that React allows us to do things that I'm sure people have read in the news, that the Facebooks and the Googles and the Apples, where they're able to layer in AI in the background of the code and everything like that, so they can code quicker, they can fix problems sooner, they can test faster, so they can ultimately get those solutions out there, right? Our goal is really to be like the Apple iPhone, to be like Google, to be like any of those modern apps that you have on your phone, where you open the app and it just works, right? You don't have to worry about bugs and things of that nature. But your phone's updating almost every single night, and if you ever
Yeah.
read the updates like bug fix and everything like that, we hope to get to that's our goal, and leveraging the AI in the background of the code is definitely going to help us get there, to where we don't have to have a bunch of junior developers and everything like that. We can have mid-level developers and below be done via AI and everything like that. And that'll help us kind of build that out. So then we can actually layer in AI on the forefront of the system when we get the React inside of the solution, because that's ultimately where people want to go from there. We don't want to be data entry inside the system. We want to say, hey, Bill Jerry's tire shop for 555 gallons at 325 a gallon, right? Saying that right there, just typing that in right into an AI bot, and an invoice pops up. It's got the right pricing on there, and you're sending it out and everything like that from there. So that's where we want to be. We want less data entry, more interaction, which gives more analytics and everything like that. So you can be more proactive in your business versus constantly being reactive.
If we go onto the strategy side, how does somebody know if they've got a, let's say it's a legacy application now, and they've kept up with it? Like, when, from a strategy standpoint, when should somebody start looking at a new ERP, and who drives that strategy? Is it the CFO, the CEO?
Yeah, so I always look, so a couple things, right? So I'm sure people on here know that the 2027 sunset that happened, that was announced for the DM2 products and the Ascend products and the Pinnacle products and the Factor products and Telepoint and all of these solutions that have been out there that have hit that 2027 sunsetting, which they're not going to be adding anything on there. That when you backdate from that, now is really the time that you want to start looking, because a good analysis of the available ERPs out there and the available individualized solutions that are out there. You want to be able to give yourself that 3 to 6 month time frame inside of that, so you can build your RFP, you can get your questions from all your people on what's important to them, what's needed, what's not needed from there. Evaluate the reports that you're currently getting to make sure that you still have that type of data available to you from there, and that usually takes in that 3 to 6 month time frame. And then your implementation, most implementations are sitting in that 9 to 12 month window from there. So if you just extrapolate that from where we are here in mid 2025, you should be looking now to make a decision by hopefully the end of this year. So then 2026, you're implementing and that you're moved and migrated over in 2027, so you're not missing out on that sunset time frame that's been out there. When it comes to the actual who, I have always, through even my time doing independent consulting, it's always been you got to have the collaborative effort, and a lot of times, having kind of that structured RFP style document and everything like that. And if anybody on here wants one, I've got a really good one that kind of goes through all the different departments and everything like that, and has the questions and has the market by the software vendor. 5, they do like I do it out of the box. I do it with customization, so on and so forth, and then ranks it 5 through 1 on importance from there, so you can have that kind of structuredized document, everything like that. But the reason why I like that structuredized document is that the CFO gets to have input inside of it. The COO gets to have input. Any managers inside the warehouse can bring their, and your head of dispatching can have their say inside of it from there. Because if you have that collaborated effort, you're already in that change control. Right. The biggest thing that we run into in software, I'm sure you run into it, Chris, is change. Right. I've always done it this way. It's all like, well, let's not talk about how you've always done it this way. Let's talk about, well, why are we doing it this way? What are the end results that we're looking for? What are those important things from there? So I always say it's collaborative, but obviously you want to have one form of champion at the company kind of running point per se. And I've seen it from the CFO running point. I've seen COOs running point. I've seen owners run point and everything like that. Because but a lot of times it's got to be somebody up there or somebody that's gonna your head of IT and everything like that, because they're gonna be the ones that have to push that message down and push that this is what we're doing, this is where we're going from there, so you can have a smoother implementation and a collaborative implementation from there.
I had somebody send me a message. So if you've got questions and answers, instead of using the chat, there's a Q&A section in there. So just put the questions in there in the Q&A, and I'll make sure that we get those answered. Yeah. So I didn't know if you're seeing more IT driven, or you're seeing more CFO or owner driven, just
Yeah.
generally.
Yeah, I would say it always comes down to size, right? So if you're, if you're a multi-hat company, you've got, the CFO is also kind of acting as a controller, and the day-to-day accountant and everything like that. We see that. But we also see, larger organizations and everything like that, where it's kind of run, collaboratively with the IT departments and the accounting departments and the operational departments from there. So really, it's usually depends on size. Some of the best ones and everything like that are the ones that do have kind of the heads of each of those inside of it. They're all seeing it. They can all ask their questions and get that through. Recently we've been doing some demos that companies have had, the head of IT on there, the CFO, and kind of the operations manager. And it's like, okay, show us how you do this. And we show them inside the system. And then we're able to say, see, if we do it this way, see how this affects the accounting side of it, see how this affects the tech side of it, see how this affects all of the different departments. So we're not sitting there and just answering a downstream problem and solving a downstream problem that may cause problems more upstream. Let's talk about the entire process, order to cash, cradle to grave, inside of there.
From a strategy standpoint in selecting an ERP, you have one or two tips that, hey, these are some good things that people have done from a strategy that you've seen across all of your experience?
Yeah, know why you're switching, right? And you can't just be because I'm being forced to, right? Know what those goals are, right? So we're switching because we want to get onto a modern day platform. We're switching because we want to become more efficient. We're switching because we need more analytics. We need easier access to the data. Just know why you're switching, right? And kind of have those top 5 reasons of why you're switching, and why the solution that you're going to pick is the solution that you want. Because when you come out of that demo cycle and everything like that, you don't want to forget when you're in implementation what you're trying to solve, right? Because you can get a little wide and shallow and everything like that if you're not focused on these are the things we're trying to knock out. We're trying to get more efficient in dispatching. We're trying to get better at billing. We're trying to reduce the amount of credit and rebills out there. We want to have better processes in our warehouse to make sure we understand what our 90-day turns are inside of a warehouse. From there, just have those individualized goals of what you're trying to accomplish with the system, because that'll help not only your company go through that, but that'll also help your implementation and your implementation team as well, because then they have something the goals that you're targeting from there. And then, like I said, the next thing is and I always say this: look at the system. Don't fall for PowerPoint presentations. Don't fall for slick videos and everything like that, because I can put together a slick video, shoot it over to you, and see how everything like that. Look at the solution. Ask for an actual demo of the solution. Ask for scenarios, right? Say, hey, show me how an order gets created inside of iRely, gets shot over to BizSpeed, how BizSpeed solves that over there, brings that back in, and I bill it, and I see the cash, and I see the taxes, and I see pricing's right, and I see the supply side invoice waiting there. Okay, how do I bring my DTN invoice inside of there, clear that out from there, bring my DTN EFT inside of there, clear those out, and just and ask for that kind of those individualized scenarios of what you do every day in your business. From there, there's a lot of a lot of legacy softwares and everything like that can do these things, but they do it just kind of showing you via PowerPoint. Let's see the system in work, in action, to make sure that it's going to work for you in the business.
I know one of the things, when I was at Accenture, I ran the energy SAP technology part. And when people implemented SAP, they frequently tried, and I think I see the same thing here, where they're converting to a new ERP, but they want the new ERP to do exactly what the old ERP did. And I think one tip I would have is, understand what the new ERP does, and don't try to recreate the old processes in the new ERP. And I've
100%.
seen it, like I saw it with a very large multinational company, and it's like, part of it was to rationalize all of their suppliers. And it's like, well, then they were going to have to go, type in specific parts, and, because they bought the same product from all these different people, and they're like, I'll just do a cheat sheet and skirt the system. And it's like, if you start off, you have to understand what the new system can do and try and take advantage of the new system.
Yeah, that's why. So one of the things that we've definitely done in iRely to kind of combat that is we ask why. Okay, and a lot of times it's, well, I've always done it that way, or the system that I'm currently using is making me do that way. And I was like, well, let's not pay to recreate the system that you have today. Those systems were good and they worked, they function and everything like that. But let me show you how we solve the same goal, the same process, and everything like that. My way from there. There's no reason to recreate somebody else's system out into the web. And we do see a lot of that where it's like, hey, take my legacy software and make it web based. And it's like, that's not what we're trying to do or intend. And then another thing that we do. So we have two meetings a year. One is our user conference, and our other one is our customer advisory board. Our user conference is kind of lottie-dottie everybody, right? So everybody can come in from an AP clerk all the way up to the owner. They're going to learn about the product and learn where we're going and learn what we're doing. That's what you were just mentioned there, Chris, a couple of months back that we had, to where we dive deeper into the product and work through those things. Then that customer advisory board is we bring in really kind of those super users, right? Those that are touching the system every day and telling us, how can we get better at it? How can we reduce the amount of clicks? How can we give you better analytics? How can we do that? And kind of put that on the customers to say, hey, tell us what we need to be doing, because I don't want to go and code something and create something that you're never going to use from there. That type of open collaboration, everything like that, does eliminate a lot of that. My old system did this, just go and recreate that here in the new system here that I'm using now.
From a process standpoint, and you already kind of touched on how long implementations are, and typically ERP implementations, regardless of the size, are at least a year. Um, what what do you see from a process, like from an implementation? I mean, are people implementing by module? Or are they implementing by depot, or is it a big bang cutover? Like where do you like how do you see people do this? Obviously, ERPs are different than, like, and there's a lot of people, there's so many people that have bought multiple companies that have different ERPs. I don't know if they, yeah, just as a comment, kind of how do you see people doing implementations?
Yeah, so the our implementation process on our side over here is kind of a very structured. We leverage a full project management tool, right? So we start with the that initial data gathering piece of it. So in that time frame from when you sign up until that kickoff, you want to be cleaning up your data, inactivating customers, inactivating vendors, cleaning up products you don't sell. If you've got 5,000 lubricant items but you're only selling 1,200, hey, let's get 3,800 of those into deactivated and everything like that inside the system. So when we get to that data gathering piece of it, we're not putting in junk and old data from there. Every customer's different. My preference is when you're trying to eat an elephant, you take one bite at a time. I like getting the GL in. I like getting the AR, the AP, the inventory, and kind of layering those pieces in from there, and ultimately getting the core done and done to where you're utilizing it manually before we're adding in any type of automation pieces inside of there. Because if the automation ever breaks and everything like that, you got to know how to do it manually. So that's always been my let's get those core kind of pieces in from there, and then let's layer in the logistics. Let's layer in the warehouse. We don't need to be scanning day one inside the warehouse. Let's get everybody kind of working. Big Bang does work, right? And everything like that. You just got to be a company that's structured for Big Bang, meaning that because you got to talk about your resource planning, right? So when you do that cutover after you get done testing and you go, yep, we're good, yep, this is good. We paralleled for a month, right? So we did a bunch of stuff. We did our normal business in our current environment, and then yep, here in the new environment, we're doing the same thing inside of there. Everything's lining up and matching up along the way, and then it comes to that go live. We're signing off. Yep, we're ready to go live and everything like that. If you do that Big Bang, the thing you've got to have is, like I said, that strong company that your warehouse manager's got to be able to be good at the same time that your accounting's got to be good, that your dispatchers have to be good, and all those different pieces have to be good all at once. Whereas sometimes it's a little easier to say, okay, let's get that accounting piece going. All right, now let's add the warehouse. Yep. Now let's add logistics. Yep. Now let's add the retail stores. Yep. Now let's add the card lock inside of it, to where you can actually then focus on those individual areas and lines of business inside of there, as opposed to just saying, all right, everybody, we're flipping the switch and this is what we're doing.
Yeah, we had one customer maybe 5 years ago that they consolidated three different smaller mid-market ERPs into one, larger one, and they did a big bang, and it was, it was a little bit of, there was a lot of paper-based process. It was pretty hairy for a couple of weeks. Once they got over it, it was fine, but it was pretty disruptive to do that. And the
Yeah. Well, I
project got
mean,
delayed, for what it's worth, just, for other folks on here, I don't remember what their original timeline was. Let's say it was a year, but the implementation slipped a few times because of the Big Bang. Because if you do a Big Bang, you got to, just like you said, you've got to make sure everything's right, right?
100%, right? And a lot, and I get the concept of Big Bang, right? Because today you're running all on the system, right? So everything's there. Tomorrow I want to be running all on the new system, and I totally get it and everything like that. But the stress level on your company and the stress level on your people, the people alone, and everything
Yeah.
like that. Sometimes just it doesn't make sense for certain size companies to be able to do it that way from there. Both can be done. Don't get me wrong, both can be done and everything like that. I've always found that Big Bangs do stretch a little bit longer from there inside the project because as much as we like to be on time and working through things, sometimes retail takes a couple extra because you're waiting on 3 additional vendors to send you something to build out the rest of that price book inside of there, and because they're saying that's 3 weeks out now, even though logistics is ready and warehouse might be ready and accounting might be ready, now the entire project's delayed the initial 3 weeks because we're waiting for retail to come through for price book items and stuff like that. So
What are the big challenges you see from a process standpoint?
uh, people always wanting to do the same thing that they've always done, right? I wish I had the Cracker Jacks box decoder ring that said, okay, when you were in Factor, you called it this, and when you're in iRely, this is what you do. You were in DM2, you did this, and this is what you do now in iRely. I think that might be the ultimate. Now that how I think about it, it might be the ultimate thing to actually create and develop and everything like that. So then folks, so I can just sit there and give them a playbook to say, hey, when you were in Ascend and you did this is what you got to do in iRely now from there. That's always been the biggest struggles with the process piece of it. But once people get it, it's no different than the first time you learn the process. We've definitely helped a lot with our standard operating procedures. So we have an entire book of standard operating procedures that you get when you're working through the system, everything like that. So your day-to-day functions and everything like that, the things that you do, there's screenshots, videos, and everything like that, lining those things up for you.
What Obviously you're cloud-based, and I know that there are a lot of people that are moving from on-prem to cloud.
Yeah.
From a technology standpoint, what's involved in that migration, and because what's involved? Do people end up making that pretty easy? Obviously, a lot of our customers are migrating sometimes from paper to the
Yeah.
cloud, so for that's easy, but.
Yeah, so the nice thing about the cloud and the cloud that we offer through Microsoft Azure and everything like that is you never have to worry about not having enough space, right? Because we can expand it for you. We can add more processors. We can do a lot of things quickly that with an on-prem server and everything like that you just can't do because you got to buy more hardware and add to that hardware. The second you buy a server, and it shows up at your office and you get it set up, guess what? There's a better server out there that's already on the market,
Yeah.
where the cloud, you're always sitting with kind of the best that you have from there. On-prem too, you're dealing with backups, your own backups, unless you're setting up your own separate cage and everything like that with backups. You're dealing with backup tapes and everything like that, where the cloud, I can just send your data in full redundancy through 3 different data centers. And worst case scenario, we typically do it every hour. So worst case scenario, you're out 59 minutes worth of data, whereas a lot of on-prems, you're out days, sometimes weeks, and in certain cases that I've seen out there. So, we recently had a customer that completely, crashed on their legacy system that was an on-prem server and everything like that. And because they were in the middle of implementation and working with us and everything like that, we were able to get them up and running in less than 24 hours in the cloud, working inside of iRely, no longer leveraging that legacy system and that and the legacy server that they had on site with on-prem.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it
What?
was all hands on deck. Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't like it was one just one guy in the tech team. It was definitely all hands on deck to make sure we got that customer up, going, and running right away.
What, from a technology standpoint, what tech skills does a customer need to have? Does that change moving from on-prem to the cloud? Like more API programming
No,
skills?
no, no, not really. I mean, you're talking a lot of, a lot of the customers and everything that we deal with, if they don't have in-house IT and everything like that, they're leveraging a third-party IT company. So just working with our IT and their IT or slash, third-party IT company is usually what we need. We didn't need, you don't need that extra tech mindset or anything like that inside, or get that new skill set, or hire additional resources to make those migrations or to manage it from there. The beauty of going hosted through us is we completely manage that, with our 24/7, 365 intrusion, and everything across the board. We have, because we deal with publicly traded companies, we have to have our SOC 1 and 2 compliance and everything like that. So, we try to have everything in place to be pretty darn impenetrable.
And we obviously like working with iRely because you guys, you and I have talked about this for a while. You're friendly from an integration standpoint, but from an implementation standpoint, what are common integrations that y'all have? And like, what would somebody see typically from an integration? So,
Yeah, so
or obviously everything's all in one, but I mean, are you seeing like payroll systems? What are the things that somebody would kind of expect or want to cover from an integration standpoint when they're looking?
Yeah, so a lot of times there's solutions out there that you love, right? And it's why we have a great partnership with BizSpeed and everything like that when it comes to the logistics side of thing, because you have a bunch of customers that love the BizSpeed solution, right? And then they want to leverage iRely, because we have our open APIs and everything like that. We're able to move data back and forth cleanly and everything like that, in a live basis, where, as up against, legacy systems where they have to do file sharing and everything like that, and SFTPs and true coding. We're just able to move data back and forth between our APIs from there. So that's always been, great to have, our partners that do have those modern day systems that kind of match up with ours. We do have a payroll system inside of our solution, but we do see a lot of people leveraging, Paylocity and ADP and Paycor and some of those other, or a local, payroll company and everything like that. And quite honestly, the thing that the integration that we get most of the time is just the GLs, right? I just want to be able to take the GL file that gets created out of my payroll system and just dump that in, so then I have the payroll piece. Those that are written into like Rail. If you're not utilizing our Rail solution, we do, integrate with Rail solutions. Like I said, we have some international customers that get into like barges and all that type of stuff. So we do have some integration pieces out there. But when it comes to the integrations and everything like that, we do, a pretty standard integration with all of our vendors, depending on the line of business. So in logistics, it's making sure that we get orders moving between systems and everything like that. And we make sure that inventories and all that maintenance data, right? So I'm not setting up customers twice. I'm not setting up vendors twice, or suppliers, or terminals, or products, or anything of that nature. And letting each system do what they do best. I want BizSpeed to do what they do best in logistics, and making sure that the trucks are on time and delivering the gallons and are accurate, and we're capturing BOLs and we're putting all those, and then let me do what I do best, and that's pricing that invoice, making sure that my taxes are correct, making sure my supply side is good, and ultimately getting that cash for that order from there.
Yeah, I think the the taxing side is a big part, and we don't, we're not a tax solution, right? So that's why we rely on the ERP to handle the taxing side of it. Um, yeah, so what does a typical project team look like for a customer? And how many people should they plan on? Like obviously they need accounting folks, and they definitely need some operations folks.
Mhm. Yeah.
But
Yeah, so the typical implementation teams and everything like that, it kind of goes in waves, right? So right off the bat, we always suggest that we kind of have like the heads of each department there, and then let those delegate down to who's going to get us the data, who's going to help us through that initial setup and that company configuration piece of it, from there. And then when it comes to the testing, that's where the team kind of expands, right? I want multiple folks testing the system, because they're the ones that are going to be doing it day to day and everything like that. And then ultimately, when you get into that training side, then obviously the team expands out to everybody from there, right? but usually, just having a couple head people, point people in the beginning kind of helps set the direction of the project from there. And then having that nice testing team of people that you can trust that are going to go through the situation scenarios, provide the feedback, and work through those. Everything like that is always the best. If you're a larger company with multi locations, you may want to consider having a person from each location kind of involved from the beginning and everything like that, so that they don't get left out inside of the process. Because if you're going to go do this and you put a full ERP in, it makes, especially at a multi-location, you don't want, warehouse A doing something different than warehouse B and C and them doing their own process. Or if you have decentralized dispatching, you don't want, these guys that dispatch tank wagons out of, the bulk plant over here, different than the guys over here dispatching out of bulk plants from there. So we definitely, you want to have in the multi companies, you want to have kind of a representative from each of those locations as well.
We've covered a lot. I think we're right at the end. So this is my lightning bonus round questions for you. Okay.
Rapid
What's the
fire, let's go.
what's the craziest aha moment a customer shared after go live?
Oh, um, so for us here at iRely, it was we had a customer that when they signed up, they were approximately 17% of their loads were credit and rebills, right? Yeah. And I mean, imagine 1 in 6 BOLs going out, you're doing some form of credit and rebill. Though some of that was the legacy system that they were on. But we have a really cool button inside of our solution called post and unpost. And it allows you to, as long as you haven't taken a payment up against that, you're able to unpost it, make a correction, repost it, and it doesn't need the credit and rebill from there. A lot of those legacy solutions and even current solutions on the market that you can buy today, like you've got to keep doing the credit and rebuild. And we've built this awesome, just post and unpost. And I mean, every customer that utilizes it, it's just like this. This is amazing. This is what I've wanted for 10, 15, 20 years from there, because now they're quicker, they're more efficient, everything like that. It reduces the amount of calls, right? Because if you send a credit rebuild, they're calling like, which one's right, which one's wrong, and so it's been almost across the board one of the biggest ahas and time savers that we have coming out of the solution.
Well, you're going to have to pick a different one for the next lightning question, which is what's one feature that most surprises customers with how much time and money it saves?
Our full rebuild inventory. So a lot of we have a background program that rebuilds all your inventory. So a lot of legacy systems and even some, like I said, the current systems are periodic inventory systems, whereas we're perpetual, right? So a perpetual inventory system allows you to run a P&L on a Tuesday and be live and accurate, right? Because we're constantly posting, we're not batching things up. So we're always in a live environment from there. Well, the backside, the flip side of a live environment is sometimes that common carrier doesn't send you that fuel bill for 3 days, right? And so you're bringing that inventory into the system, and you're bringing all that stuff, and you're backdating, and then you go and you look at your reports, and all your margins are off, right? Like, oh, we lost money on that load. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Freight's wrong on it. So we have this really cool tool that just sits in the background and kind of runs every night that will rebuild your entire inventory. And you can do it by product, you can do it by category, you can do it by line of business. So if you just want to be, rebuilding fuel, you can rebuild fuel. If you want to, rebuild your lubricants item at a certain warehouse and everything like that, you can do that inside of there. So a lot of our customers love that rebuild inventory because the front side of it is you never have to worry about waiting on paperwork. You never have to worry about, oh crap, I didn't get this into the system in time, or I put this in the wrong. We rebuild it all, and then the backside of it is now you have constant live, fresh. What your margins are across the board, which owners and managers absolutely love.
You could snap your fingers and add one AI capability into the product from a customer standpoint, what would it be?
Uh, I love the show me. I just show me top customers and show me this, and because the things that we always hear, the questions I always get from prospects and customers is show me, show me, show me. So I want to add the AI show me. I think I might actually call it that. So yeah, I would cancel the recording.
Yeah.
I did a trademark it. Hold on, let me hit the TM site real quick. Um, but no, I want to add the show me feature. Show me my top customers. Show me who hasn't bought in the last 6 months. Show me top margins. Show me the consolidation of locations for this customer. Like all that, just show me stuff, right? And having it respond back with analytics and reports and data and stuff, because like I said, the biggest thing of where software is going, where things are going, where people need to go is they need to be more proactive and less reactive. Everybody reacts to losing a customer. Well, why did we lose that customer, right? Well, if we were more proactive, we could have seen that their gallons were dropping off every week, every month, right? I mean, it's not like their business. If their business is going down, then we need to have that conversation with them. But if we don't know it, we don't know it. They could be, but you see that type of stuff, and if you don't have access to that, you're reactive, and a lot of times those reactions mean lost customers, lost margin, and lost gallons, and we all build and thrive on those gallons. So that would be if I could snap my fingers and have it in there tomorrow, it would be the AI show me tool inside the iRely software.
And what's one piece, this will be the last one, what's one piece of advice you think customers should know when they're picking an ERP? If you could say, hey, I wish everybody really knew this, what would it be?
The the process is tough. You've spent 20, 30 years on a system, and you have grown to know that system and love that system, and its shortfalls, and its tools and its utilization, and all of that. And when you're switching, the process is tough because you've got change management, you've got newness, you've got people, you're rethinking processes, you're cleaning things up, when you go and clean up customers, you're like, oh, I remember, all like the process is tough, right? It's not heart surgery or anything of that nature, but if you think about it, it's the ERP is that heart of your business, right? It manages your inventory, it manages your product, it manages your customers and your pricing and everything like that. So it's the heartbeat of your business. So just like anything, when you're dealing with the heart of your business, you've got to make sure that you're ready for it and you're prepared for it. Your people are prepared for it, because it's going to be tough. There's going to be ups and downs all throughout your implementation process. If you think about the last time you went through this or the last time you added software, into your business and everything like that, it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies. It was tough. Drivers learning, something that they were on a flip phone and now they're on a tablet. Dispatchers that are used to, putting and pinning stuff up on a board and people coming and grabbing the tickets, and now it's like, no, I need it right here. If you don't do it right here, then accounting falls behind and pricing falls behind and cash falls behind. And so just tough, going through all of that. So I say it is tough, but the back end of it is it's worth it, because once you get through that and once you've added those efficiencies inside the business, and you're working through those pieces, you can truly redirect into revenue operations without having to add admin expense to it. I had a customer, a longtime customer of mine, one that's went from factor with me to doing some consulting with me when I was a consultant, and then ultimately when I went to iRely, they came over to iRely as well, and they said the biggest thing that they absolutely love about this, they've gone on iRely, is that they've been able to 3x their business without adding one single admin person. and because they could truly focus on revenue operation positions, adding salespeople, adding people out in the field, going to additional trade shows to promote their business, all because they came in the iRely and they leveraged the solution on how it was built and intended to be used.
That's a good story. And it's interesting. I think from our side, we see similar things where people just aren't, they have to realize they have to change the processes. It's back to, I did it this way. I want you to automate my paperwork like this. And it's like, there's a lot of things you get with a logistics system that you don't have to do it exactly the same way you did before. And I think a lot of times people don't realize what they get with the integration with these systems too, in the real-time data flow. And yeah, we've certainly
100%.
seen the same thing. Hey, you're going to grow you can grow your business without adding trucks. That's kind of the easiest thing. Or you can grow your order volume, just by being better at order generation. So
Yep.
this has been awesome. Hopefully it's been good for everybody. We've had a few questions and I think Dylan's answered those directly. But if nobody has any other questions, Dylan, thanks very much for doing this. We always appreciate the partnership and your efforts to jointly work together on things. We will do a recording of this, or we did a recording, and once we get it assembled, we'll send it out for anybody that wants to rewatch it, or if you want to forward it to to your other colleagues. So, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you
Yeah,
and the
this is
BizSpeed team.
this is great. Yeah, but we appreciate it. So thanks. Have a good day. See
You
you.
too. Bye.